So it's a very interesting topic. It's something that people talk a lot about when they talk about learning, the learner motivation. But this year, we at INTEA, also through our breakfast, we have talked a lot about the marketing, right? And about how can we compare learning initiatives to marketing initiatives. And if we look at the marketing side of it, there's actually not so much of a consumer motivation, right? Imagine Apple or Microsoft or, I don't know, your local store, any one of them complaining that their customers do not have the motivation to buy their product, right? That would sound, I don't know, weird at least, right? What do you mean I as a consumer have to be motivated to buy something from you? But learners, they also buy something from us. And as we were discussing in our breakfast, they do pay it with their time, with their mental effort, and all the other things, right? So we at INTEA believe that one of the myths we have to deal with is that we should not rely on learners having motivation. That is just not the case, right? We have to work from the position that from the state of mind that per se a priori.
But for example, sorry for interruption, but the trainer also can be a motivation for the learners by his or her personality.
Exactly. Exactly the point here that we should not blame the learners. They do not have motivation, but we have to be thinking of how do we boost that. We have to be thinking of what do we do with our learning initiatives to make people want take these learnings, to make people want engage in the learning activities. Right, the same as if we think about Apple, if we think about as a great marketing success, right? First of all, they have nurtured the following, right? The followers of their products. But at the same time, think of Apple, some 15 years ago. People were lining up to buy their products as soon as those appear in the store, right? They kind of were motivated. Guess what? Today, it's almost not the case. We do not see the crowds like that wanting to enter the store. At the same time, the company is doing much better. The company is worth much more, right? There is no sign of it going into decline. So we have the learner motivation is not the task of the learner. It is the task of us creating those learning experience. Moving on, all learners are different. And this is, all in all, we at INTEA believe that this is more of a lie than not, right? For a number of reasons. First of all, and those of you who know me and seen me speaking in conferences or in breakfast, I always talk about this example of visuals, audios, and kinesthetics that it actually was totally debunked by science, right, as a most persistent myth in learning that we have to cater for different learning styles. Moreover, what we see in our work, that the key to success is not trying to figure out how are our learners different, right? Because given the sheer size, the small size of our learning budgets, given the very short time we have to prepare those learning activities, the learning events or e-learning courses, we always have very little time and very little money. So concentrating on the difference between learning and learning groups is much less productive than concentrating on producing quality content, on being concise, on being to the point, on being relevant, right? So these things are much more important. One thing though, where a word of caution is that there is one big distinction we have to remember when we are working with different audiences, that there is a very big difference between novice learners, learners who are new to the topic, and people with previous experience. This is a big difference, right? If you are training somebody to become a salesman for the first time, or you are training an experienced salesman who has to improve on certain sales skills, that's a big difference, right? In that case, I would say you have to think about the differences between different learners. But you can solve this problem very easily by creating a really flexible learning environment where experienced learners can just skip things they know, where learners can choose which parts are important for them, right? Where we do not have this restricted navigation, where we do not have a lot of restrictions. So this flexibility will solve it much better than creating versions and versions of different courses. We see that this year in some of our customer organizations as well, even to a point where topics like anti-money laundering in the banking sector, some of our customers used to have many different versions of this topic, right? Some for the frontline people, some for the back office, and they were trying to figure out which is important to one audience, another audience. It takes a lot of time and effort. So now I see a lot of our customers are saying we will have the same version for everyone. We will just have a much more flexible approach to it, right? So to summarize, it is not 100% a lie, but it is definitely a direction that is very often very dangerous, and where you get stuck thinking about all those nitty-gritty differences, whereas creating something that is relevant, concise, to the point, easy to use, flexible, that is much more important than trying to create those different experiences. You just usually don't have enough time and resource to do that. The next one, and probably closest to my heart, is the myth that you can, there is a way, there is an instructional design approach that can feed any kind of content to the learners, right? Basically, there's always you can always find a way how to feed information that is utterly boring or complicated, or whatever problem with this information is, if you have very good instructional design, right? So it's just learning people have to be able to feed it all to the learners. They just have to find the secret sauce. And why secret sauce, right? Because we often think of this information, of this learning, that if we make it animated, if we make a story, if we do this and this, if we I don't know, make it in 3D, right, then it will fly. And the lesson we learned, not this year, but we started to learn it, of course, long ago, that it's not true. There is no secret sauce. That if you think about haute cuisine, yeah, if you think about the grand masters of French cuisine, like Bocuse, then his dishes were brilliant in every aspect of it. It's not about the sauce that saves very badly cooked ingredients of this dish. No, it's all together. And what I'm trying to say that you cannot save a very bad content and very bad inputs into the learning with some fancy blows and whistles. The only way you can save it is actually thinking about the whole dish. And the dish starts with the first ingredient, the main ingredient, which is information. And what we've seen working much better than concentrating on the sauce is concentrating on the content first. And especially this year and last year, we've seen an influx of very complicated topics, right? A couple of days ago, we had a discussion in our team that companies are asking us to produce much more very deep, very specific things right now than they used before when we were doing more of the work safety, IT safety, things like that, right? So now we deal very much with data analytics, we deal with complex production processes, complex financial calculations and things like that. And what we found very good approach is to always start from scratch. Not take what the experts give you and come up with a sauce, how it then can be delivered to the learners, but really start from basics. And those of you who have been to some of our breakfasts know that we talk often about action mapping as an approach, right? So that works, right? So during these last couple of years, I've become much more skeptical to requests where the requests contain some kind of very clear format. Let's make a video about it. Let's make a game about it. Let's make it animated. Because it's so boring, so we have to invest a lot in the format. So my suggestion and my piece of advice is no. Let's not start from the sauce. Let's not start from blows and whistles, but let's start with information, really working through with the experts what is important, and really taking an approach that if you have to explain this to your grandmother, right, how would you explain data analytics to your grandmother? And this is a much better place to start than thinking of in which format it will happen. Another thing, and this is very much 2020, yeah, another lie or a myth is that all learning will be e-learning, right? And when the COVID pandemic started, we of course had a lot of many universities coming to us who are very much kind of in the traditional learning kind of format right now, and also companies, and they all try to say that and to find out, so how do we convert to e-learning instantly, because we are not able to do that face-to-face. Very often that conversion, instant conversion, was going on to Zoom meetings like we're doing right now, or transforming to a traditional e-learning, which is asynchronous, right? And we have, when we talk about going online, we have to separate those. Synchronous is like we're doing now, and asynchronous when you are taking a prepared for you pre-made e-learning course. And as much as INTEA historically, we do much more e-learning than face-to-face stuff, of course. This is, of course, a lie, right? A very simple analogy is that radio, kind of newspapers did not kill books, radio did not kill newspapers, television did not kill radio, Netflix did not kill television. They just started to evolve into something different, right? So if you are an organization in the very early phase of adopting e-learning, right, you might feel that you are somehow behind the trend, that everybody's going to e-learning. This is not actually true, and this is not going to be true. The difference is that these things start to merge much more closely. The blend becomes much more kind of nuanced, so to say, and we are going away maybe from very traditional approach in the past, where you take something online, right, and then you do something face to face, when you kind of the theory online, the practical exercises are face to face. These were kind of a classic blend maybe 5-10 years ago. I'm seeing actually that we are going to a much more nuanced training scenarios, where we have a bit longer campaigns, where these face-to-face or Zoom sessions are kind of intervened with self-study, and so you will still need lecturers, you'll still need trainers, you'll still need mentors and people like that, and it will not all be e-learning. And hopefully, when the pandemic stops, people will be able to get together face-to-face again, because there's a lot of value in that as well, right? And a lot of studies show that completely removing the face-to-face contact in the learning environment is very, very harmful, right? It's just more about the proportions and ways how you find these blends effective for each particular case. Not kind of, it's not either or situation. Another thing, right, if we go deeper into the technology, one of the things in 2020 that became kind of more topical for some companies was, of course, the learning management system. Because as soon as people had to work from home, of course, the LMS got even more important, right, as the platform where all the learners connect. And a lot of companies, when they were trying to buy new LMS this year or did that before, everybody tried to buy something as powerful, as functionally elaborate as possible, right? And very often this purchase of an LMS was basically organized in a way that the company gathers information requests from all of the stakeholders. They create a huge list of requirements, and then they try to find something that fits. The problem is, and it is a problem that is not still kind of figured out in the kind of in the technical world, is that there is no ideal LMS in the market, right? We can claim that we do have an ideal email service in the market, right? Or we have a situation where the email services, email platform, email service is dominated by Gmail, right? So we have one clear benchmark there. We do have a clear benchmark for something like what the office tools, right? Everything connected to your needs with regards to writing texts, doing calculations, or preparing presentations. We know Microsoft Office is the thing. It seems like Microsoft Teams has become also a way of a benchmark, or very popular with regards to how do you organize work remotely, right? But with LMS, there is still a big problem. There are hundreds and thousands of them, and you cannot say which one is the benchmark or which one is a good one or a bad one. We will not talk about the reasons for that. That's a different conversation. But what is important here is that with remote work, it became clear that some LMSs work and some LMSs do not work, or at least this is what people are sometimes talking about. But in actuality, what the crisis showed, at least in the organizations we work with, that in a situation when you are in a crisis or it's totally new situation, the content in the LMS is much more important than the LMS itself, because people, when they what they need is support in terms of information, in terms of learning, right? And the LMS is just a carrier of that information. And we see that the struggle for different companies is not who has a better LMS, and it is not those companies that have maybe a worse or older LMS that struggled, but more those that did not have that knowledge base, those who did not have that good e-learning content to deliver to their learners that they can rely on it, right? Also, all the organizational stuff. If you have a very good LMS, but it's full of old courses that do not work, or that you cannot find the right information, does it really matter that it's a very good LMS, right? So in a situation like that, what we saw is that this information support, this ability to find information, this ability to share information is much more important than some of the fancy features. And to be honest, when I look back at my customers who implemented LMSs in the last 10 years, and the longer the list of requirements was, the smaller percentage of those requirements actually materialized and were used by them. That very often, actually, a lot of what was on the list was a nice to have thing, right? So the summary here, the idea is do not start from the LMS when you want to develop, to kind of bring forward your learning function. Start rather with the learning experience and the learner needs and what they actually need, because sometimes what they need is so much different from what an LMS can do, right? And we see very good examples of companies actually living without an LMS or living with a very outdated LMS, but still their learning function flourishing, right? And this is of course not a recipe, but still works. Dart is asking, so what to do if a company wants to develop new courses but does not have an LMS? The question here is, of course, in the short term, you can survive without an LMS, right? It will be a little bit difficult. It will be difficult on the reporting. You will have to figure it out. But again, always bear in mind, why are you doing this, right? Why are you doing these courses? What are you trying to achieve? If you really need a very simple reporting, you can live without an LMS. You can really come up with something simple. We can explain how to do that. If you don't know what kind of LMS you need, you have to get more experience as a company to figure out what this list of requirements is. You can always come to a company like INTEA and rent something for a short period of time, maybe a year, host it with us, see how it goes, learn from it, and then create that list of requirements. So just take it step by step, right? Because very often when somebody thinks of buying an LMS, they start thinking about the needs they will have in 10 years, right? But by the time you arrive there, everything will change. So there is no point in planning so far. It is much more important to figure out what are those 2-3 crucial things that it has to do. Right. Custom built is always better, right? And I will tell you a story here that a couple of years ago, when GDPR became a topic, right? At least for us living in the European Union, but of course also beyond. We at INTEA, we came up with an idea that, okay, I mean, GDPR, this is a piece of legislation. It equally applies to everyone. The principles are universal, right? So there's so why do not we produce a course that covers the basics of it, so that our customers do not have to build custom-made courses, and they can deploy it really fast. It will be cheaper for them, easier for us, everybody happy, everybody complies, people know the basics, so should be working perfectly. And the end result was that it was a kind of a 50-50 reaction. We had some customers who were very eager, and also now, a couple of years later, they take the course and it works for them, maybe with little adjustments for their business specifics. And then we had an array of companies that decided, no, we'll do the custom build course. Sometimes we were the ones helping, sometimes we were not. Doesn't really matter. But it turned out that this custom build situation is, of course, much more complex, much more costly, much more time consuming. And in the end, when you see on the end result, it actually is not so much different, right? And we at INTEA, we always try to be very, very skeptical and very questioning the idea of a customer or of a learner group or a business unit saying that we are very much different. It is very often not true, because the principles very often are the same for everyone. Like, for example, how you serve customers, right? Or how you sell. There's a lot of commonalities between different businesses, between different spheres. So it has to be really, really, probed before you decide you need something very, very custom built, right? So that's from the point of content. More importantly, in the last couple of years, when the mobile learning became very important for many companies. Again, there was at first this idea that we have to be investing a lot of money into it, we have to build custom courses, we have to custom program them using HTML, for example, to make them responsive and scalable and things like that. Now, fortunately, we do have much more tools in the market, and I'm not representing that company, but Articulate are doing really, really well in the sphere. And we see that actually this custom building does not pay off, because a lot of the courses we have to produce, they will not survive, the next iOS update or the next, Edge update, the browser. They might not survive if they are very much custom built. That the best idea and a more robust idea is to take proven, working, well-supported tools, and I'm thinking about things like course building software like Articulate, but I'm also talking about the LMSs. We know they're well supported, they know they will adjust to the changes in the in the technological development and rely on them, right? Which means that sometimes you will have to say no to some very nice things, you know, some blows and whistles we talked earlier, and you'll have to stick with something a bit more basic, but that basic will work. It will work longer. It will work better, and most importantly, you will always be uh, feeling you have not spent so much money and time on it to discard it at some point and say, okay, now 4 years later, we have to remake this IT course, right? Because yeah, it's we have to update it. It will be much cheaper for you. So thinking about this customization, please be very, very cautious about it. That is very often the cost of doing it is much higher than the return you get, right? Another approach to it, taken by some of our customers, is that you take the core of your learning, of your e-learning course, you take the core as something off the shelf, right? We had one instance where we helped one global company to work with their time management, for example, topic in their sales department globally. So what they did, they took a ready-made course on time management and they build around it some custom things that are important to them, right? But basically they tried, the 80% of it was something that actually works for everyone, right? So the truth is somewhere in between. You don't have to go completely custom made, but you also don't have to go 100% off the shelf. You can always be clever in how you combine them. For example, with that same time management course, what they did, they took an off-the-shelf training by Cross Knowledge, but they added mentoring sessions to it with mentors, which were synchronous sessions that helped the learners put that knowledge, put that theoretical knowledge into their perspective, in the perspective of their company. Moving on, micro is better and nano is best, right? There is, of course, a very huge trend still with micro learning and nano learning, and that has persisted for some 5-7 years, I think, from the moment when companies started to introduce mobile learning on a broader scale. As some of you might know, we already challenged that approach in some of our breakfasts and some of our talks and conferences, because behind all of the micro learning and nano learning, there is a macro learning, right? You can teach a salesperson, for example, through micro learning, you know, some products, some new approaches, some new techniques and methods. But on the macro level, that person still has to be a salesperson, right? The same goes, my favorite example is about doctors. Nobody becomes a good doctor by micro learning. They have a very huge luggage of macro learning, right? And then the micro and nano learning can be used and is used to build on top of it, to update the knowledge, right? So when we think about the pandemic and the way learning evolved into remote learning, right? Very often, then you cannot rely only on micro and nano. You still have to come up with the macro learning. The problem is, if we define what is macro, macro is when you learn for, and here I will be very simplifying, but let's say you have a big program like I don't know, a sales academy. You would be you know, the whole week in the training seminars with practical things and theoretical things. Let's call it the macro kind of thing. Then now, when people were put on Zoom with those kind of sessions, when they had to spend 6 to 8 hours of learning through Zoom, that before that they were doing in the classroom, that became a nightmare. It is very tiresome to your learners. It is very tiresome to your training staff. And I really doubt that the outcomes are very good, right? Because this environment of being online the whole day, it takes more energy as compared to you being in the classroom, right? So the energy level becomes very low towards the end of the day. So you have a much more, you have to be a bit more clever in these cases, how you spread that out in time so that you still deliver the adequate amount of macro learning, but you do not force it through in a way that everybody's tired, because as soon as people are tired during their learning process, they stop responding to it. They just wait for it to end at some point of time, right? We have a question in chat, sorry. Sorry, 1 second. So we have a question to ask. So how to combine the best features of both macro and micro learning to have one menu table of content that consists of micro learnings? I would say that, yeah, kind of, first of all, yes. The micro learnings, they have to be easy to use, in the sense that they have to, you have to be able to find them very easily. And when I'm thinking about micro learning, I'm always thinking of those being not only the one-time learning. So I got this bit, I took it, I went through it, I learned it, and I forgot it. But no, it has to be organized in a way that it's very easy to find later, right? So this is how about organization of micro learnings. It has to be somewhere very easily to find. So it's a little bit an LMS thing as well. So how do you deliver the micro learning? Combining macro and micro learning is a bit different topics. So in what I'm trying to say, that each profession, each role needs its macro with an A, macro learning kind of basement, right? On top of which you have to build it. And very often nowadays, that basement is a learning program, right? Which is designed to happen, I don't know, depending of course on the role and situation, but it's I don't know, it's a month or 2 and maybe 3 if it's something overly complicated. And then that can of course also consist of some micro bits, right? Absolutely, micro learning might be part of the macro program, but that program is something that is well designed, well thought through, blended with you know, certain amount of learning every week. You're building on top of it, 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 right? So, and it has to happen in a bit longer time, because people just cannot, you know, take on so many skills or so much knowledge. They have to reflect on it, you know, they have to try it out. Right now we are at INTEA, we're experimenting and building a project called Sales Academy, where we every week we have certain sales topic. Is it introduction to your customer, or is it objection handling, right? Or is it preparing an offer? Doesn't really matter. And you have one topic, 1 week, and you have to put that topic in practice during that week. But those are macro things, right? This is not something you learn in one activity over 5 minutes. It's a combination of that. Yeah, the line number 8, so to say, video rocks. One very big trend of 2019, and for that matter also 2020, is that video is kind of going through its, what is it, renaissance, right? We used to have a lot of video learnings back in the day, some of them on those sent on discs, right? Like Learn English in 3 months, you could buy and get it home. And that's kind of a predecessor of e-learning. We used to have those things, right? And then video died. And then video died because in the learning context, because there were other tools, streaming video through internet was problematic, a lot of constraints, and of course the sheer cost of it, right? Now, when you can make a video with your smartphone, and when you have a very good internet and LMS is supporting it all, it all kind of, there is a big renaissance of it. But so a lot of customers come to us and they kind of already come up with this idea that you have to do a video, right? That's not a silver bullet, right? I'm not trying to say that videos don't work. They do work, right? But very often they do not, right? Because very often they are misused. The video we want to see in the learning context is something short, is something 5, maybe 10 minutes on a topic, right? But not a recording of a lecture or a recording of a Zoom session that people will be watching through, right? Very often they will not be watching through, because if Zoom learning itself, if it happens for an hour, 2 or 3, is quite tiresome for people, right? Then watching it and not being present is sometimes also tiresome, and it's so hard to find within that video what you're really looking for. So I'm here preaching to think of a very good combination of combining different formats. What is video is good for, right? It is first of all good for creating engagement and interest in the audience, right? So I really like, and I see that our learners also respond really well when you have a topic. And we did one very good training that was launched recently with one of our customers on climate change. And we had a couple of chapters, and we would start each chapter with 1 minute maximum video, where it would really inspire learners and show how they can make a difference and why is it important. And the rest of the content would be interactive, right? So videos as marketing tool, as creating interest, I think work really well. The other aspect of videos is, of course, they're very good at demonstrating things. Not demonstrating the face of the lecturer, not demonstrating the slides of the PowerPoint that is still available, but demonstrating how machinery works, right? Or how a biological process works, or how certain behavior works, right? Showing how people behave on video is very good. We as humans, we learn a lot by observing other people. So when you're teaching soft skills and you want to show how to give good and bad feedback to people, video can be very good, because you can really kind of imagine yourself in the shoes of that person. But videos are very bad when you want to show a talking head, when you want to show slides, or sometimes even if you want to show the IT systems you are training for. This is sometimes very tedious and boring, and nobody wants to watch it. Finally, to summarize, there are truths about learning, right? That is, I think, one of the biggest lies we have. First of all, because learning is so under studied, and how people learn and how our brains work, it is still a very understudied area. We know some basics, but we still do not have, such a level of knowledge that we could prescribe very precisely. Like we can prescribe some drugs. We can prescribe, if you have hepatitis, then this is the drug to take, right? Or if you have this is the drug to take. So with learning, we know the training needs, and also not always we diagnose them exactly correctly. But we cannot say, if you have that learning needs, here is the learning pill to you, right? And for that, as an example, you will find in learning completely opposing ideas. One organization will tell you learning has to be structured. We have to tell people what they have to learn, what they have to know. It has to be very clear. We'll give them a lot of guidance. They will know what to do to achieve this. And if you want to know this, you have to take this course, and so on. And there will be an opposing view saying that people know what they need, just get off their way. Do not disturb them. Do not make it harder for them. They will find for themselves, right? And so in learning, we see a lot of completely opposing views, and it's very hard to say what is right and what is wrong. And I think this is something that we have all need to embrace for the next year. And I hope that we all be well that year, and the pandemic finishes, and we can get to to the new normal, right? But if we look ahead, if we look in the future, if we think of how to live on and how to organize our learning, I would say that we should not take anything for granted, right? And there are very opposing views. There are very little truth, very little things you can really rely on. So it is much better to rely on your local findings sometimes, on the things that your people tell you, on the things that your people respond to, right? There will be people saying gamification saves any kind of learning content, any kind of learning situation, and make it gamified, people will engage. And my answer will be, I've seen companies using gamification and seeing people engaged thanks to it. And I've also seen companies not responding to gamifications, and cultures and businesses not responding to it at all. So we cannot make those choices based on some broad ideas. We really have to dig in and see what's there in your exact situation, your learners, your business, your culture, and so on. So this is the point. This is the moment I would like to stop. What I did today, I tried to share not mine 100%, but the aggregated ideas, aggregated conclusions we at INTEA have after seeing how the pandemic put so much pressure on everything and also on learning, and we saw where the cracks appeared and where they did not appear, and where things continued to work really well. So this is what I tried to share with you today. I hope this was useful and interesting. Please write your feedback in the chat if it was or if it wasn't. Also, don't forget that we do those breakfasts based on your input, based on your wishes. So write in chat if there's something that you would like us to talk more in the new season. The new season will start somewhere in January, right? We now have to finish off this year. We have to finish off our projects. And give us your feedback, follow us or on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. Write to us, and me and Sergey will be back in January with a new season and some other new stuff. So if we do not meet this year anymore, then of course, Merry Christmas. I know this will be the last 4 weeks for all of us, and this will be for most of us probably very tough. So time will fly. So Christmas is not far away. So Merry Christmas to you. Stay safe, and meet you in the new year. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, a lot of thank yous. Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye.